My name is Rick. I'm 81. I was once a construction worker, then a father, a grandfather, a friend, and a husband. Now I'm a gray-haired old man who wakes up every day in a rocking chair by the window, where the sun no longer shines as brightly as it once did. My life has become a slow-motion movie, where every day is like the last. The house I live in used to be full of voices and laughter. Now it's a silence that rings in my ears worse than any noise. I live in a small house on the outskirts of Seattle that I inherited after my wife, Elizabeth, died. My children rarely visit. My son, Michael, says he's too busy with work, and my daughter, Julia, has her own family in Chicago, and 3 grandchildren who are constantly sick or have school performances. Sometimes I feel like I've become just an item on their calendar. If they even mention me, it's only as a matter that needs to be fixed someday. My heart aches. Sometimes it feels like it stops and starts again like an old motor. But it's not my body that hurts the most, it's my soul. It's weak from the silence and indifference. I often go out onto the porch, hoping to see someone I know, but the street is empty. People pass me by without saying hello. In the store, salespeople talk to me without making eye contact, and sometimes, when I ask about discounts or products, they answer dryly, with a hint of irritation. I see their eyes searching for a quicker way to end the conversation. The last time I came to my grandson's birthday party, I sat in the corner, on the couch. No one came up to me. No one asked how I was. Everyone was busy on their phones or chatting. And when I finally got up and gave a toast, I was barely heard. My granddaughter Bella, who used to love sitting on my lap and listening to my stories about the Vietnam War, now rolled her eyes and complained to her mother in a whisper that I was talking too long. It wasn't just loneliness. It was a feeling of invisibility. It was like every year you were being wiped out of the world like chalk from a blackboard. I existed, but between the lines like a shadow. Sometimes I talked to myself, just to hear my own voice. And when the phone went silent for weeks, I began to wonder if I really had anyone else who cared. Recently, I called Michael for no reason. I just wanted to hear how he was. His voice was tired, distant. We talked for exactly 3 minutes. He said he had a meeting and promised to call back. 2 weeks passed. There was no call. And the worst part was, I stopped waiting for him. My neighbor George, another old widower, died in January. His body was found 4 days later. No one noticed he was missing. The thought haunts me every night. Will they notice when I'm gone? In my youth, I was the pride of the neighborhood. I was born in Detroit, but all my life I dreamed of building. Not just houses, but places where dreams are born. And I built. First bridges for the army, then schools, hospitals. I even received an award from the city for participating in the reconstruction of the old theater, which is now called the Pearl of Seattle. I was the one who got up at 5 in the morning and worked until sunset. My hands knew the weight of bricks, and my back ached from overwork. But I did not complain. I built the world for my family. Elizabeth said that I held our life on a solid foundation, and I believed it. At 25, I married Elizabeth. She was my sunshine. Together we created a house where it always smelled of pies, where children's drawings hung on the walls and laughter sounded. I did not miss a single Michael concert, a single Julia exhibition. When I needed money for their education, I sold my old car and took on extra work. I didn't complain. On weekends, I taught my grandchildren how to work with wood. We made birdhouses together, fixed the fence. They still looked at me with admiration. Bella would say, "Grandpa, you're the strongest and smartest." I remember Elizabeth and I sitting on the porch with a glass of wine, listening to jazz and talking about old age as a time of rest, a time when you finally reap the fruits. But no one warned me that those fruits could be bitter. Real old age is not wrinkles. It's the absence of eyes waiting for you with joy. My army photos, diplomas, and medals are in a box in the pantry. Michael once said he would hang them in his office. 15 years have passed. The box is still with me, and every time I open it, I feel both pride and pain. Pride for who I was. Pain because no one else is interested in it. I don't expect gratitude. I expect simple human warmth. Memories are my treasures. But sometimes I want someone else to recognize that they also have value. Once I was a cog in the big machine that was my family. Now it seems that I have become a piece of debris that gets in the way. But hope still burns in my soul, because I remember who I was. And that means that I still exist. A month ago I fell in the kitchen. It was late at night. I got up to get some water, but my legs wouldn't let me. My head felt dizzy, and I fell, hitting my shoulder hard. I lay on the floor for several hours until my neighbor Sarah found me. She had noticed for a long time that I went out for a morning walk at the same time every day. That day I wasn't there. She rang the doorbell, and when she didn't get an answer, she called the police. They examined me at the hospital. The doctor said I was still fine, but something had broken inside me. Not a bone. Something else. Something invisible. I lay in the hospital bed, hearing other patients outside the wall screaming, crying, calling for the nurse. I didn't call. I was silent, because I knew no one would come quickly. Michael didn't arrive until the next day. He sat on the edge of the bed, took out his phone, and started complaining that the traffic was terrible, that work was draining, that the world was going crazy. I listened to him silently. I wanted to say that I was afraid to go home, that I wasn't sure if I could pour myself a glass of water. But I didn't say anything, and he kept talking. Dad, you have to understand, it's hard for everyone right now. We don't have time to breathe or live, he sighed. I'll try to find someone who can come visit you from time to time, maybe a nurse or a social worker. I nodded, but inside I wanted to scream, Son, I built bridges. I survived a war. I worked nights so you could go to college. Can't you see that I'm here, close by, and I'm scared? Julia sent flowers. No note. I was grateful, but they smelled of emptiness. The doctor, after examining me, said dryly that everything was fine, but it was worth thinking about changing my daily habits. I know what that means. It was a soft, professional, it's time for you to look for a caregiver. The system saw me as a risk, not a person. A week after I was discharged, I went to the pharmacy. The saleswoman, a young girl with colored hair, rolled her eyes when I asked about the price of the medicine. You've already got the discount, Grandpa, she said, not hiding her irritation. At the bank, I was served last, although I was first in line. On the bus, a young man took the seat for the elderly and pretended to be asleep when I stood next to my cane. In a cafe, a waiter called me old man, not with anger, but with that condescending note that hurts deeper than an insult. I became a background for society. People hurry past me. They can't see me anymore. And what's worse, my children are also losing sight. They see the obligation, not their father. They hear my voice the way they hear the noise of the ventilation system. Background, familiar, unnecessary. This is the real test. Not back pain or lost sleep, but the loss of significance. Sometimes I ask myself, do I deserve this oblivion? And what hurts more, the indifference of others or the fact that I myself am starting to put up with it? It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I went to the park, my daily ritual. Slowly, with a cane, I walked along the alley where a few years ago I played frisbee with my grandchildren. Now there were other people's children running around, and none of them paid any attention to me. I sat down on a bench under an old maple tree, a favorite place, and again alone. Suddenly I heard a voice. Rick, is that you? I looked up and saw a man about my age with a white beard, in a cap. He was smiling as if he had seen a ghost. It was Tom, my friend from the army, with whom we had lost touch over 40 years ago. It can't be, Tom. I barely got up, and we hugged each other like brothers who had survived the war and life after it. We sat on that bench for more than 2 hours. Tom talked about his life in Texas, about the loss of his wife, about the loneliness that gnaws at me from the inside. He told me something that struck me. I thought I was superfluous, too. But one day I decided that if the world didn't notice me, I would make sure it heard my voice again. He started a veterans club. They meet every week, talk, remember, even read poems. We have something to say, Rick. We lived, and it's worth remembering. When I got home, something woke up in me. For the first time in a long time, I felt not only pain but also inspiration. I sat down at the table and began to write. At first hesitantly, just lines, dates, names, emotions, then memories, about the war, about the first meeting with Elizabeth, about building bridges, about the first time Michael said, "Dad." In the morning I woke up and sat down to write again. Without regret, without fear. I knew it was important, that these pages could remain even when I was gone. And then I took another step. I called the local library and suggested we hold a memorial service. Not for myself, for others, for those who feel forgotten as well. The director, a young woman, said, "That sounds great, Mr. Rick. We'd love to hear your story." And in that moment, I realized, I can still be heard. I can still be seen. I'm not a shadow. I'm living history. From that day in the park, my life began to take on color. Not immediately, but every action, every step, took away its power from the silence. I no longer sat by the window for days, waiting for the call. Now I had something to do. I wrote. First on paper. Then I learned to type on the old laptop that Michael had left behind. I began to get up every day with a clear purpose. I didn't just remember, I organized my memories. I described how Elizabeth and I first met in a cafe where an old Elvis record was playing. How my friend, nicknamed Paperclip, saved my life in Vietnam. How I hugged my son at night after his nightmares. All of this is a mosaic of my life that I was afraid to lose. A week after meeting Tom, I held my first evening of memories at the library. I was nervous. I thought a few people would come. Over 20 came. Young people, seniors, even 2 teachers brought school children. I read excerpts from memoirs. People listened attentively. Some even cried. Afterwards, they talked for a long time. They thanked me. They hugged me. It was like breathing deeply after years of being in a stuffy room. I realized, I'm not alone, and I'm not a shadow. I'm the voice of a generation that still has something to say. I also called Julia. I told her that I wanted to come to them in Chicago. She was surprised, because I usually waited for her invitation. I explained that I wanted to show my grandchildren how to make wooden toys, record an interview with them about family history. She agreed. She was even happy. Bella sent me a message. "Grandpa, you're cool. We're waiting." Michael. It was more difficult with him. I took a long time to gather my courage, but I still called. No offense. I just honestly said that his silence hurt me, that I was still his dad, that I loved him. There was a long silence on the other end. And then he said, "It's my fault. I forgot what it's like to have a father. Thanks for reminding me." And he arrived. On the weekend, we sat on the porch drinking tea. No phones. No rush. I showed him my notes. He read a few pages and said quietly, "Dad, you have to give this out." I smiled, and I felt something new. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. I decided that my house wasn't the end of the road, but the beginning of a new chapter. I invited other elderly people from the area to my house. We started a memories club. We meet every week, read, laugh, sometimes cry. But most importantly, we're together, and each of us feels alive again. My heart still sometimes skips a beat, but now I know it beats for a reason. Today I am 82. I sit on the same porch as always, but the world around me looks different. Not because it has changed, but because I have become a part of it again. I often think about what old age is. I once considered it the end of the road, a dark corridor of loneliness. Now I know that old age is not silence. It is an opportunity to be a voice. The voice of experience, pain, love, loss, and hope. It is a chance to pass on what cannot be found on the internet or in a textbook. Yes, I am not the same as I was. My gait is slower. My hands tremble. My memory sometimes betrays me. But there is something in me that you cannot buy or learn life. I have lived it honestly, with weekdays that smell of sweat, with nights filled with prayers for children, with years where there was a place for both laughter and tears. And now I know, I am not a shadow. I am light, albeit a soft one. I am a bridge between generations. And as long as I live, I can be that bridge. My memories club has grown. Now we have meetings every Saturday. Both old and young come. We talk. We listen. We share. And every time I see in the eyes of the young the same fire that once burned in me, the fire of understanding, I heard something important, and that's enough. Michael calls every week. Julia sends photos of her grandchildren. Bella asked me to teach her to make wooden toys like she used to, and I, in turn, asked her to tell me about TikTok. We laugh together. That's the connection. Life doesn't end with retirement. It just changes rhythm. And the main thing is not to be afraid to sound in this new rhythm. Even if it's noisy and fast around, even if it seems like you can't be heard, speak up, because your voice is needed. My advice to those who are younger: don't wait until it's too late. Talk to your grandparents. Call. Listen. Ask. Because in each of them there is more than just old age. In each of them there is a world that can still be discovered. And to those who are already gray-haired, I will say, you are not alone. Your experience is a treasure. Share it. Remind yourself of yourself. And do not be afraid to love again yourself, the world, and even those who once forgot about you. I do not know how much I have left, but I know one thing: I am alive. And this is already a victory. As long as your heart beats, you can change the world. Start with your own.
Subscribe and like and share this video with your friends.